we roll there. Some rock, some wind, some 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 wind.
Hello, everybody. Showtime number 36. And yes, I haven't updated the stream title. I will do that once I'm done with the intro. So, hello, everybody. Welcome to another Showtime episode. And so, I don't have a long introduction, so we'll get to it pretty quickly. But a couple interesting news before we get there. Number one, we released a 2024 financial report and fundraiser. You can find it on the official Zig website, and also people in chat, if they can kindly link to the blog post directly, that would be nice. Please do check it out so you can see where the money goes, and also so that you can consider donating to the current ongoing fundraiser, because we are asking for more money so that we can pay. We've gotten more contributors over time and more work to do. And so more money would definitely help us reach Zig 1.0 sooner. Second point is that we have officially announced Software You Can Love 2024. It's going to be in Milan, Italy, from the 14th to the 17th of May, 2024. So if you can be in the area around that time, please do consider coming. There's going to be, you will have a chance to meet Andrew, a bunch of people from the Zig core team, and also active community members. So yeah, come have fun. And also, if you think you have something interesting to share, there's an open call for speakers. This year, we're also going to have Richard Feldman join us. Richard Feldman, the creator of the Rock programming language. And there's going to be probably a few people also from, that side of the fence, as in functional programming. Although Software You Can Love, it's its own type of conference, so please do check out the front page. There's going to be an explanation of what the teams are going to be, but also in the call for speakers, you will find that it's slightly different this year than previous years. So thank you very much. And with that, I think that we can go to the main content. So I know that Andrew doesn't really need an introduction, but since we're using the normal Zig Showtime format, I guess I should say a couple words about him, just like I normally do with other speakers. So Andrew Kelley is the BDFL of the Zig programming language. He's also the president of the Zig Software Foundation, but he's also a competitive player of a game called Killer Queen. He's also a skater. I met him in where he lives in the United States a few months ago, and we went to a skate park. He made me try French fries with cheese curds, peanut butter, and jelly on them. So that was an experience. And so without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Andrew Kelley.
Hey everyone, my name is Ginger Bill. I'm the creator of the Odin programming language, and please try my new beer. Just kidding. Hey everyone, thanks for that intro, Loris. And it's been a while, I haven't done any streaming, haven't done any talking in a while, so it's about that time, chaps? Shall we dig into what's coming up? I think when you donate on our every.org button, it lets you put in a little private note, and it's been fun reading those. And one person's private note was, "Here's some money. You're doing a good job, but please tell us more updates like every month. We want to know what's going on." Like, okay, that's fair. So let's at least do that right now. How's my audio doing? A little too compressed. I think I'm going to keep going, but Loris, you can step in.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Change it up. Okay. All right. Well, let's dig in. So the first big topic is going to be the release that's coming up. And this information is already kind of public, so I'm going to just show you how you can access this information. If you go to Zig's GitHub page and you navigate to milestones, and you go to the next milestone, it's actually pretty accurate. So sometimes I do go through here and take stuff out, and I think, you know what, we're gonna have to postpone that. We're gonna have to do that later. But for this particular milestone, the focus is on actually getting these things done, and not on a particular due date. So it's kind of a different one this time, because I think this milestone, it's going to be the first one where I think a lot of projects are going to feel comfortable pinning to it. And by what I mean by that is, we have this tracking issue here, which I set up so that you can edit this wiki page and add your project to the list. So these are our important third-party projects, and what decides if they're important is just if you decide that you're an important third-party project and you put yourself in this list. So as an example, the mock folks have handily created this issue on their issue tracker to say, hey, this is the major issues we're having right now. And we've solved some of their major issues, but there's still a couple left. And what I want to do for this release is get these done. Hopefully this one too. And similarly, other people's things. Let's see who else we have here. Let's look at Tiger Beetle's big issues. This is going to be probably more longer term things. Like, we're not going to get this done for this release. If there are bugs, they would definitely be a priority. But no, this one we actually got done pretty recently. So anyway, point being, what I want to do is go through all of these and do the things that are not long-term projects. Do the things that are short-term projects in order to tag a release that can then have a good chance of having people be just set. You know, they're just kind of okay on 0.12. They don't really need to update the latest thing until it comes out. And I think I've basically collected those issues here. So you might have noticed that even though this is like pretty close to being done in terms of percent, it still hasn't had a lot of progress done in January this month. And yeah, the deal is I moved this month, and that really just sucks the concentration out of you. So it's just a bunch of little tasks interrupting me throughout the day. So what I focused on this month was pull requests. So you might have noticed we actually got up to over 200 for the first time in Zig's history, 200 open pull requests. But I've been grinding away at these for 2 weeks and got it down to 94. So that's where we're at now. I'll try to get down even a little bit more. But then at some point, I'm going to kind of ignore the pull requests for a bit and focus on the release. So that's what's coming up here. So let's get back into this then. Now, after this release is done, what next? Because we all knew that that's coming up. So how about the roadmap for the future after that? Well, let me skip past all this stuff I already just showed you on my own screen. Bugs. Bugs bring me great pain. So we have too many bugs. Look at how many bugs we have. $1,227. What am I? If I solved one of these per day, it would take, what is this? 4 years, over 4 years, to get them all fixed. That's too long. So I need to solve more than one per day. How are we going to do that? Well, the realization that I had is that the compiler is too damn slow. That's why. That's why we have bugs, because it takes too long to fix them. You know, I don't know what the exact percents are of doing this stuff, but if we could reduce this compiling slice to, you know, almost non-existent, then you can take that same chunk of time that you have per day to work on programming, and instead it's going to be spent more on testing and more on editing code, which is going to let you edit bugs. Sorry, not edit bugs. It's going to let you fix bugs faster. So, in my opinion, the best thing, like if we're playing, you know, like a economy, you know, Age of Empires type game or whatever it's called, or deck building or anything like where you're investing in your economy, we actually need to make the compiler fast, and then that's how we're going to fix the bugs. So this may sound kind of like stupid or simple, but I think it's one of those it's one of those things where like if you don't think about it enough, then you come to that conclusion, and then if you think about it more, then you realize something different happens. But then if you think about it the most, like Galaxy Brain, you go back to the beginning and it's like, yeah, it actually just needs to be a faster compiler, and then we can fix the bugs faster. Like it really is that simple. So to me, that's the highest priority actually after getting this release out. So priority one, get people set so that they can pin and not have experience breaking changes all the time with the 0.12 release. Next priority, we need to make this compiler the fastest programming language that anyone can use. That's the next priority. So yeah, I wanted to show this thing. So I also have this little performance dashboard here. This is like a Kanban kind of, but I don't know. It's just a way to look at just a bunch of issues. And this is also pretty accurate. So the way that I'm thinking about performance is in these kind of angles of attack. So we have one angle of attack, which is ditch LLVM, and that's it's a good strategy to make the compiler fast because LLVM is the bottleneck of the compiler. So obviously that needs to go. We've had a lot of work towards this done in the 0.12 release cycle, actually. And I forgot to grab a number of behavior tests passed percentage for you all. But it's to the point where you can start using the x86 backend. Oh, here it is. And this is a backend that Zig provides that does not touch LLVM at all, which makes it significantly faster. So it's not passing all the behavior tests. There's still some not passing, but it's to the point where you can start playing with it. And for some projects, you can actually have a debug build of your project that just bypasses LLVM, and you're going to get faster builds, faster compilation. Still a lot of work to do on that backend, but it's to the point where you can start playing with it and seeing if it works for your use case. So that's actually going to land in 0.12. That's available to play with now. And obviously in the future, we'll keep making that more practical. So I'll come back to ditch LLVM, but incremental compilation, this is the big one. This feature is something unique to Zig because you just can't do it on accident. You have to design for it since the beginning. In order to launch incremental compilation the way that we're doing it, you QBE, you can't use a system assembler. You have to write your own code generation to work with your own linker. You have to completely change the way that all the memory is organized in the compiler throughout the whole pipeline so that you can make this thing work. Like, for example, we've gone through and changed all of the types and values in Zig so that there's no pointers at all, and it's organized like a database that can get flushed to disk and serialized to disk and deserialized from disk with a single syscall, because everything is just in arrays of integers, and you can store it on disk in the exact same memory layout as the compiler uses it at runtime. So it really is just a mem copy to go to disk or to go to memory, like actually just mem copy, no fix-ups or anything like that. And you can't get that, as an afterthought. You have to design the system that way. Furthermore, part of the reason that we've been focusing on the compiler architecture lately and not so many language proposals or modifications is that I'm willing to make the language conform to what will make incremental compilation feasible. So, if you tried to add this to C or C++, you just would get stuck because the language requires you to do things a certain way. But if we're willing to break the language, which I abso-fucking-lutely am, then when you when you run into a design dead end when trying to make incremental compilation happen, you just break everyone's code, change the language, add a new restriction. Sorry, you can't do this because we have to make incremental compilation work. We need to have a fast compiler. We're going to change the language. That's something that we're still able to do, and existing languages can't do that. So my point here is that this is actually Zig's killer feature, and we haven't even launched it yet. We've been investing into this one, into the linker. We've been investing into this one, into an in-house backend. We've been investing into all these things, and there's been not even that much payoff yet. But it's a killer feature that no one's even experienced yet, and no other project is going to be able to catch up because it just takes so much fundamental design work, and you have to do everything. Like, you can't add an abstraction to your project and get this feature. You have to dig up the existing abstractions and rework them in order to get this feature. So it's going to be a thing that's completely unique to Zig. So this is, to me, after the release, this is the highest priority of everything, because when we have this, it's going to unlock dramatically faster productivity on any project in Zig. So people who use Zig to make games, terminals, JavaScript engines, databases, everyone's going to experience like super increased productivity. And then also we, as a Zig compiler team, will also experience increased productivity, and those bug counts will start going down real fast. So this is the next big priority. Let's check my notes here. Yeah. Okay. So incremental compilation, that's the big thing. And also wanted to mention, I forgot to mention this on the other on the release. So 0.11.1, are we going to do it? I kind of wavered on this a little bit. I think I will go ahead and tag a 0.11.1 release. I'll just cherry pick some commits in there, make sure they pass the CI. At some point, the code starts diverging too much, and it's just a lot of the bug fixes just can't go in that branch because the master branch changed too much. But we can get some stuff in there. We'll go ahead and tag a release. But I think it's going to be not a very useful release. I think that most people, even if your goal is bug stability, I think you're going to want 0.12, even as preferred to this one. But I'll go ahead and do it because I said I would, and it will be a little bit better than 0.11. But I think 0.12 will be even better in terms of bugs than 0.11.1. So keep that in mind. What about a bug fix release for 0.12? Yes, absolutely. Because I think the idea is that we want people to be able to pin to 0.12 if they want to, if they want stability. And so 0.12.1 with only bug fixes, yes, that's going to help the use case of pinning. And so if you're a user of Zig and you're interested in pinning to 0.12, but you feel like one of your big issues is unsolved, let me know. Make sure that your issue is covered in this milestone. And you can ping me on an issue if it's important to you. And you can say, hey, I want to pin to 0.12 when it comes out, but I'm having this major blocker problem for my project, and it's not listed in this milestone. So when you release 0.12, I'm not going to be able to pin to that one because my problem still exists. So let me know if that's the problem for you, because I want to make sure that if you want to pin to 0.12, then you feel comfortable doing that. Okay, and then next, release notes. Our release notes are out of control. It takes too much work, and their quality is just too hard to ensure because I try to go through every commit and make sure that they get mentioned in the release notes. That's just not feasible with how much work is being done on Zig. So we're gonna tone it down a bit. Release note strategy is going to change. So for this release notes, we're going to focus on language changes only, breaking changes only, and then just like big stuff that feels like it's worth mentioning. And we're not going to sweat trying to mention everything because it's just too much stuff. So the idea is you go to the release notes for 0.12, you're not overwhelmed by too much information. but you do get a taste of what's new, and most importantly, you get to see a list of all of the relevant stuff that broke, so that you can have a one-stop shop for updating your code base to that version from 0.11. So I think that'll be a little bit of a stress relief on the dev team, as well as being more useful for users. But yeah, let me know what you think about that. And then what about 0.13? Yeah, 0.13, that's how I was going to segue into bugs and incremental compilation. So let's go to the next topic, which is finances. So Loris mentioned that we're doing a fundraiser, and that is indeed true. We got this little banner here on the homepage. If you haven't read this article, I'll encourage you to check it out, because I went through and spent a whole day digging around in the accounting books and charts and stuff, and I made this pie chart of expenditures. I made this pie chart of where we get our income from. I think it's quite interesting to look at. And yeah, as Loris mentioned, we're getting a lot more users of Zig, a lot more people wanting help, a lot more people using Zig, and but our donations have stagnated a bit. So I wanted to ask for money, and the thing is, I won't put them on the spot, but I'm thinking of two people on the Zig core team in particular who just want to bill more hours. They want to do work on Zig, and their choices are either get that money from, like, they're going to need to either do freelancing with a different party, or they're going to take a ZSF contract. And if they take a ZSF contract, then Zig gets better. And if they do freelancing with a different company, then Zig doesn't get better by them. So my point is that if ZSF had like 10 grand more per month, we would be able to put that money to like 100% efficient use. Like, that money would go directly towards contractors who I'm thinking of in my head right now, who would do incredible work. And if we could do that, that's like a major boost in how good Zig is going to be very quickly. And if we can't do that, it's going to take longer. It's just going to take longer to get to 1.0. So anyway, point being, if we can make that happen, that's going to be a boon. If we can't make that happen, it's fine. Things are going to take longer, but that's how it goes. So if you're already donating, which I think probably a lot of people watching the stream are, I really appreciate it. I guess I'll pull down this one. I'll go highlight this other chart here. A lot of these, let's blow this up a bit. This blue slice here is individuals. Benevity is also mostly individuals, and this green slice is mostly individuals. So actually, individuals is a bigger portion of this pie than it looks like. It's about a third, I would say. And that's our favorite kind of income, because individuals, it's like you don't get very much money from any particular person, but as a whole, that's the chunk of people who really keep ZSF true to its mission, because we can really just focus on doing making a great compiler for our users, releasing it, and not trying to run around doing a bunch of admin overhead, all that stuff. So especially big shout outs to the individual contributors. I know you feel like your amount that you donate doesn't matter, but as a whole, it matters quite a bit. But also, we really do appreciate these other companies that have helped us to, make swifter progress towards our goals with bigger chunks of money. So it's all appreciated, all of it. But I don't know. That's it for finances. So let's move on to 1.0, which I mentioned we could get to quicker with more money, but we'll get there regardless, either way. And this is kind of like what I think is going to happen in order. So I mentioned performance, and I think that making the compiler fast is ultimately the fastest way to get to 1.0 because we can use that compilation speed to speed up our development velocity. So that's just the first thing we need to do. Also, as I mentioned, the language is malleable. The language can change if it's going to help performance of a compiler for that language. A lot of people like to say languages aren't fast or slow. Compilers are fast or slow, or they have different qualities. Like if you went into like the Python IRC channel in 2005 and said it's Python fast, you get a bunch of pedantic people saying, well, Python's not fast or slow, but the C Python interpreter is fast or slow. And it's like, that's not actually accurate because languages impose restrictions on what is possible in in generating code and optimizations and all that stuff. So I think that's kind of like, if you really want to be truly pedantic, languages do have a fundamental speed limit that the language imposes. Anyway, point being, I'm absolutely willing to bend the language to make it more amenable to a fast compiler or to optimization. So that's why working on this comes first, because we can't solidify the language until we know that the language is good enough to make a fast compiler. And then finally, when those are done, we can start solidifying the standard library. As of right now, it's kind of just an experimental playground. Some of it's more stable, array list, array hash map. Some of the OS abstractions are pretty solid. Some of the standard library is pretty low quality. Some of it's high quality. But once the language is solidified, then it's time to solidify that. Then we can start getting a draft of the spec out, and then we can start to tag 1.0. But I think a lot of people I see this sometimes. People are like waiting around, like, oh, I'll try Zig, when it's 1.0. I don't want it to be unstable. And I think that's a reasonable emotion. But I think that in practice, what's going to happen is that we get closer to 1.0, and things will just become extremely stable. And that's the point where you can start using Zig. And you should absolutely start using it when it's stable and not 1.0 yet, because that's the chance when real users who really invest in it start to have problems. We have a chance to fix something before we want to like really say we're not going to do any breaking changes. So also, I'm not sure 1.0 is going to matter that much, because I'm thinking about some ideas where you can declare the language that your code depends on, and the Python 2 to Python 3 situation was pretty bleak, but I feel like it didn't have to be that way, because they could have just had the source code say which version of Python it was, and then the Python interpreter could have just made it work. And I don't know, I feel like they really failed to exercise imagination on that. And I think it's going to be quite feasible to have Zig source code declare the version of Zig that it uses, and actually make Zig code, on 1.0 and maybe like 2.0 Zig code or 0. whatever Zig code work together, no problem, because like the compiler itself can just know that the semantics were supposed to be different in an older version, and then just make it work. It's fine. That works for a big category of changes, but not 100% of them. But anyway, point being, if you're sitting around waiting for 1.0, maybe wait around for a little bit longer. Well, because things are pretty unstable right now. But maybe 1.0 is not really what you're waiting for. Maybe you're just waiting for the draft of the language specification to come out. I think that's going to be a stability turning point. And with that, I think that's pretty much all I have to say. I don't think I have any more slides after this, and I'm happy to field any questions if anyone has any questions about 1.0 or this milestone or the next milestone or anything like that. Thanks, Loris.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. So let's see if there are questions from chat. Let's give them a moment so that we can have some questions build up. So we already have some questions, so I'll go right away. So I think this question comes from Bitwatcher, but it's probably on a lot more people's minds. Couple words about async.
Async. I should have had a slide about that. Okay, so here's what I'll say about async. Deep in my heart, I love async await, because the idea is that you can express your intent precisely. You can say, I want to start this, I want to start this, I want to start this. And then later you say, now I need these results. And then later I need that result. I love that. And I also will say, I'm a big fan of Node.js. I haven't done JavaScript programming of that sort in a while, but like ever since like Dino and Bun came out, I haven't done it. But I did a lot of Node.js back in the day, and man, I gotta say, single-threaded event loop with callbacks is so cozy. Just feel really good about the way I could express that concept in that framework. I tried to bring that to systems programming, to ahead of time compiled programs, and I still want to try and bring it, but there's some big problems to solve. So one of them is it basically is just completely incompatible with LLVM. So we need our own code generation backends if we want good code. If we want good async code, LLVM just doesn't cut it. It's not good enough. They have their own coroutine built-ins. I tried them. They're trash. Sorry to Gore or whatever his name is who made them. It's just bad code. It doesn't work. It's slow. It's like we had to just not use those built-ins. They also just implicitly call malloc, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's just untenable. You just can't do it. So you have to do it with structs, which completely defeats LLVM's optimizations. Like you might like you're gonna get better code gen writing your own backend just because they don't solve this problem whatsoever. So we have to do our own code gen. Next problem: you're running your code. You want to debug it. The debugger doesn't handle async await. There's no way to represent it in Dwarf. There's no way to represent it in code view. The system debugging tooling doesn't cut it. We have to make our own debugger. There's also just some difficult language problems to solve with regards to cancellation. That's something I can take on. It's a big problem. So the thing is that there's just all these problems that make it not practical. That just make it not work. And basically, the previous version of async await that Zig had was an experiment. Actually went through 3 iterations. That was the most recent one was a 3rd iteration of async await. And as an experiment, it was successful. I mean, we collected information about what an event loop would need to look like, about what the features will look like, how they'll integrate with the language, what problems we'll run into trying to lower them with LLVM. Ultimately, I think it can be recovered. I think we can have async await, but it's just an extremely difficult technical problem to solve, and I'm not willing to solve it in a half-ass way. You know, I don't want to just check an async await box. It's got to be good. So yeah, let me do it on my own time. We'll get there, but there's just multiple huge technical problems to solve to make it actually good. That's how I summarize it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think people really care about async because, from my perspective, as somebody who as a user of async, it's really cool what you can do. Like the idea that you can have one code base do blocking and async all at once. Not magically, obviously, you have to design for it, but that's something that's really, really cool. But yeah. Okay, so next, let's see, next question. So actually, there's a comment that I would like to address. So there was another piece of news posted in the news section after the 2024 financials, and that has to do with donor bounties. Oh yeah, Andrew is pulling that up. Yep. So the idea of donor bounties is basically our way of making feature bounties work for the Zig Software Foundation, for the Zig project. So the comment is saying donor bounties are pretty cool and hopefully will contribute to recurring flow somewhat. Sure, although for us the recurring donation that is not tied to anything, that doesn't have any management overhead, like just money that can directly go to people doing work, that's still our preferred way of getting donation money by far. I would say that this idea that we came up with is really mainly because there are some. So while we did have issues in the past, there are some very genuinely well-intentioned supporters of the Zig project who just would like that tiny thing to be prioritized just a little bit because it matters to them, and they're willing to offer some money for that. So that's basically a way of channeling this not inherently negative feeling in a productive manner so that we can all be happy. That's mainly the goal here, not really to change our main way of getting donation money. Like I really think that the idea, like the main deal, I guess, is that you like the Z project, you donate money to the Z project, you trust us to allocate that money in a way that makes sense. Andrew, is there anything you want to add to this?
I'll just say the same thing you're saying in my own words, if I may.
Sure.
Which is that, yeah, no strings attached donations is still our favorite kind of donation. And this donor bounty is not something that we're saying like, oh, this is a new thing that we want everyone to do. Not really. It's actually just basically us working with a couple of donors who wanted this, and we're like, okay, we'll make that work for you. We're happy to help you out.
Nice. Okay, so another question. Does tooling have a place in the timeline, or will things like the language server and tooling remain outside community projects?
Oh, man. I just was thinking about something else for a second. Can you please repeat the question?
Sure. So does tooling have a place in the timeline, or will things like the language server and tooling remain outside community projects?
That's a good question. Where does that fit in? Yeah, I really should have handled that. So I think that here's the way I would put it. The roadmap that I outline here, that's kind of like the on paper roadmap, and I think it's the main guiding force from my perspective for me. However, there's a way that anyone can influence the timeline or the roadmap of Zig, and that's with a pull request. So when someone does work, if it's good work, then that's kind of like you suggesting a different roadmap, right? Because, was this on the roadmap? I don't know. I had a standard library listed after language stuff, right? But you know what? I'm going to look at this, and if it solves a problem, if it's good code, I'm going to merge it. And I'm going to merge it before, I'm going to merge it pretty soon, hopefully. So point number 1 out of 2 is if you want to influence these kinds of things, you can. It's not guaranteed, but you can do a pull request, and you can push Zig down a path, on your own timeline. That requires volunteer work, but that's an option that you have. And as far as what I'm going to work on, I want to focus on this roadmap as I've outlined it here, with primary focus on incremental compilation, as I mentioned. However, there is something that I do, which I think is smart, and it's something that I do for myself as well as an affordance that I offer to all of our contractors, which is that you can always work on whatever you want, even if it goes against the master plan. Because, in the end of the day, we're all humans, and we all have emotions and motivations and whatnot. And I'm sure other programmers have experienced like a lack of motivation. Like, you're supposed to work on something today, and you just can't do it. You try, and you just stare off into space. That certainly happens to me. And the way that I deal with this is I just allow myself to break the rules. I allow myself to work on something else. And as long as I pick something else that's still productive, then at the end of the day, the roadmap doesn't go perfectly according to plan, but I'm still channeling all my energy into making progress. I don't know. Some people might call that ADD, but that's That's just how I work. So, in other words, there's a fair chance that I'm making progress towards this big goal, but this week I need to change a pace. Maybe I'll do a little bit of work on ZigReduce, or maybe I'll do a little bit of work on language server or tooling, that kind of thing. So, long story short, I think there's a good chance that tooling improves, because tooling is always an investment that can help in other endeavors, and it's nice to have a breath of fresh air. So, hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think so. If I can add something from my side, I would say that in general, I guess depending on how you look at it, it's in an interesting spot, because some part of the tooling is top notch, like everything that deals with compilation of C and C++ code and the build system. These are like, even though the language is very early, these are very stable parts of the Z compiler toolchain. And they are so stable that I've recently started working on a static website generator. And the entire static website generator is just a collection of tiny tools and a script that basically builds up a build graph for your build.zig, like for Zig build. And that's how your website gets built. And it leverages completely the Zig build system. So that it shows how flexible and complete it is. On the other hand, though, it is true there are some other parts of the Zig ecosystem that are still very early and incomplete. One example that everybody likes to complain about, in my opinion, a little bit too much, but it's, for example, the language server. ZLS is doing a lot of work, but it's not the Z compiler, and so it cannot understand everything that Comptime can do. If you will, the same issue is also present in Autodoc, the documentation for the standard library, which is a project that I worked directly myself. So for ZLS, personally, in my coding experience, which people can see also on Twitch, I use it a lot. Go to definition, find references, always works flawlessly for me. But it is true that if you do Comptime heavy stuff, then it's not gonna be able to follow along. And neither will be able to do that Autodoc. So the point here is not that we don't care about that type of tooling. It's just that that type of tooling is complicated and requires more work. And the plan for now is to have more help from that perspective from the compiler itself. But that in turn has to come further down the line. So I would say that our perspective in terms of tooling is not to not care about it or just to leave it to third parties. It is to design it. It's just that it's a matter of priorities, and some other things have to come first.
Another thing, if I might add to that, is that some kinds of things, when you get them done, they increase your velocity, and some things are attacks, and that's an example of attacks. So if we make the compiler faster, that just benefits us from forever. If we add language server to the compiler, then that's like a big component that then has to be maintained and kept working. Like every time we want to rework the memory layout or this or that, it's like a tax on how much. Like, you add more lines to the code, you have to edit those lines when you want to make a change. So, and for me, I use Vim. I don't use LSP. So actually, like, it's a pure tax. It's not actually going to help me navigate the Zig codebase anymore. So it makes sense to choose a strategic time to make that investment.
Yeah. So this one is a question much more in the weeds of the compiler, but I think it might be interesting. From the perspective of a casual observer, I don't know how casual, but okay, let's say casual observer, the intern pull changes seemed like a tough gutting of the data structures in the compiler. How difficult was it to actually land that change? Were there unexpected issues, or was it just a bunch of drudgery?
I'm trying to see if I have the pull request still open, because it's yeah, I think I do. There it is.
By the way, this is like a question from the most casual Zig observer.
Who was it?
It's from Scoop018.
Oh, okay, I didn't recognize that. Yeah, this is the change set being referenced, and you can see it's almost 30,000 lines. usually if you see these kinds of changes, it's because someone like vendored something. That's not the case here. This is actually like every line is a line that like I edited, or Jacob or Matthew helped me with. So yeah, it was a massive change. Um, what's I think it's an interesting question because the question was, did something unexpected happen? And the answer is no. Um, it required a rework, but it just kind of went according to plan. There was a couple issues where I designed some of the types with a little foot gun in it, a little pointer that would get invalidated in an inconvenient way, and then later mitigated that, or not mitigated. Later, I just changed that type so that that foot gun didn't exist anymore. Um, so I made that mistake in this branch, but I mean, that wasn't really. I wouldn't even say that was like a big unexpected thing. So, in other words, this took about a month, and it was a massive change, and it did create some bugs as a fallout, which is expected for this many changes. But ultimately, I think it does show how refactorable and how reworkable Zig code is, because I mean, ultimately, it went pretty smoothly, and it wasn't. I wasn't like scratching my head the whole time. It was kind of straightforward, and then everything worked. So I don't know. I don't know what kind of velocity other projects have. Like, how long would it take to do a 30,000 line diff? Would it take a month? Would it take more than a month? Would they just never attempt it? I feel like in a C++ code base, like LLVM, for example, they want to do stuff like this, and they just can't. I'm pretty sure that's the case. Like, they have all these things that they want to do. They're like, oh, we should have done untyped pointers or those type or this or that. And they did land the untyped pointers change. I think that took like 5 years or something. That was a change about. I think that's pretty comparable actually. So I feel like this change is like pretty comparable to LLVM trying to land untyped pointers. Took me a month with 2 people helping me. Took them, I don't know, 5 years with like hundreds of people working on it. So I don't know. I think it's a good example of how Zig is actually pretty hackable, pretty malleable after you've even after you've accumulated a lot of code.
Okay. Next question. Oh, this one is really good. I'm interested in contributing optimizations to the Z compiler eventually. When can I do that? Will there be a separate IR? Is there any design for this part of the compiler done already?
That's a good question. So that's one of those things where it might behoove us to start something even though we don't intend to follow through right away, so that we can unlock people like you, the person who asked the question, from contributing. So to answer your question, I don't know whether there will be a new IR. One thing that I would like to do is learn more about Quick from a guy who goes by Negate. So this is someone I've met in person, and he's done a lot of research into making not only a fast compiler, but a fast optimizing compiler. And he has a lot of really interesting. He's done a lot of interesting work on this. He's like sea of nodes concept, and so anyway, I want to look into Negate's strategy for optimization, do a little bit of research on my own. It's an area where I don't have a ton of experience, so I'm not giving you a super solid answer, but this is a good lead, especially because I don't know if Negate's watching, but if we do his strategy, he might be tempted to contribute as well. So anyway, long story short, I do think that it could be a good investment for the Zig project if we added our first, if we added optimization to the pipeline, got it going, so that there was a place that you could start to contribute to. But that's going to require a lot more tooling. We're going to need to have more testing on passes. We'll need to have more introspection on the pipeline. So it's a big project, but it's definitely coming.
Okay, let me see. I think we have. Let's do one last question. By the way, in the meantime, Hector Jam donated $50 to the Zig Software Foundation. Thank you very much. So The question is, I scrolled and I lost it. Okay, I found it. How can I persuade my company or a company to use Zig instead of C in production, knowing that Zig doesn't have a stable spec as of now?
Ask for forgiveness instead of permission.
Right, the Python way.
But I'm not actually joking, but in a more serious tone of voice. I don't know how old you are in your career, but if you're young, that's a serious advice. If you're older and you already knew that, then maybe a more nuanced answer is you can perhaps start to use it for like dev tooling. Um, so trying to put it in production, that's a harder thing to get by. But there's a lot of code that you use at your company that's not running on users' computers or tied to the main source of income. And these things typically no one really cares what language they're written in or how they work. So if you just you get your normal work done for the day, and then just as a side project, um, just rewrite or improve or just change something that's not like running on the consumers or not running in like the main line of what gets your company income, and you make an actual improvement to the software, right? You don't just change it for just to change the language. It's got to be like, oh, now it's faster, or now it has this new feature, or whatever. People are going to say, oh, great, thank you. They don't even care whether it's written in Zig or not.
Yeah, from my perspective, because people do ask me this question a lot, and they expect me to actually like give them practical advice all the time. If you think about it, like okay, having a spec directly is important, like in the long run, but in the day to day, from day to day, like on your daily stuff, it doesn't really matter much. Case in point, there are plenty of programming languages out there that are gaining traction that do not have a spec, and people get by. But also, when you look at the version, like people also, as Andrew was saying, sometimes think that they want to wait for version 1.0. But if you think about it, version 1.0, it's like a string that so technically can be as long as you want, but in practice, it's just like a handful of bytes at a time. And that many bytes are not nearly enough to describe the state of Zig compared to the other programming languages out there. Like that is more nuanced information that you need to go get yourself, make your own idea of where Zig stands compared to the alternatives and what the trade-offs are. And usually what helps with that is also practical experience, as in using Zig yourself to do stuff and actually experiment and try out if your things work or don't work and whatnot. And ultimately, then in a company, what matters is your ability to be able to convince people that your mental model of where Zig stands is good enough. These are the two variables. So again, thinking 1.0, it's like you're over reducing the while the actual problem statement is. In any case,
I think Node.js was on 0.8 point something for a long time, if I remember correctly. They had not tagged 1.0, and a lot of companies were betting on it. It was like massively popular, and it bothered people. They wanted it to tag 1.0. There was even a fork. They felt like it was stagnating, but people built their businesses on it because it was stable. It's more nuanced than a number. Yeah, it's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So, by the way, Palsmo donated $50. Thank you very much. Captain Undefined Behavior. Okay. So, we had an undefined behavior, I think, that used to watch your streams, I think, Andrew. Now we have Captain Undefined Behavior. So, thank you for the $50.
I'm not afraid of Captain Undefined Behavior. in Zig, it's called illegal behavior anyway.
So, thank you very much. Okay, through real Spiridon FL, thank you. $100 to the Zig Foundation. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. So okay, final question for real. I decided to ask you this because a few people asked it, so in various ways, but people were wondering, so they have watched Martin's talk from Software You Can Love Vancouver, and they were wondering if there have been any update to the problems presented in that talk.
Nope, no update. As far as I'm concerned, it's not actually an issue in practice. Like, it's an issue for before we tag 1.0. It's an issue to sort out with the language, but it just actually doesn't cause that many problems in actual code. So it's just not really high priority. And I don't want to. It's been kind of weirdly popular to talk about in like the tech circles of Zig, which I mean I get. It's kind of scary. It's like, oh, what if I use Zig and this happens to me? But I don't want to just react to it being a hot topic and throw some band-aid in there. I'm gonna do it right. And I still think I have a chance to solve the problem in a way that not only avoids the potential foot gun, but also makes you able to write optimal code that can be perfectly optimized. I haven't given up on that yet, but that's going to require a little bit of tinkering, a little bit of experimentation, a little bit of language work, and I really want to be able to focus on it without being distracted by all the other stuff I'm working on. So yeah, basically I've just been putting it off until I can give it undivided attention. But I don't know. I would be very interested to hear from specifically this set of people right here, the people who've bothered to like write down what problems they have with Zig. For example, Tiger Beetle. Note that they do mention this actually. So that's actually, this is an example of what I'm saying. I'm interested to see this point here.
Yeah, but I think for them, these issues are sorted by priority. So they are explicitly saying that everything above that line has higher priority for them.
Okay, yeah. And Matt Kled has also expressed in like zigit.dev that actually this is like not really affecting them too much in practice. So I don't know, like it's an open issue. I'm not denying it, but I'm just saying like, all this other stuff I agree is more important, like in their opinion, it's more important that we deal with the fact that like the plus operator can cause illegal behavior. And I agree with that actually. So I don't know. I have a different opinion about what the priorities are than the tech sphere, than the news cycle.
Okay, makes sense. And I think with this we can call it a day. Andrew, is there anything else you want to share before we end the show?
I think I'll just say one more thank you to everyone who's donating, because I've been doing this for a few years now full time, and I just really appreciate being able to work on Zig full time, and I love serving users, and I love making everyone happy and trying to make everyone's code good. And I really appreciate that people trust us with their donations to make that happen for them. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So we're at the end of the show. Thank you everybody for stopping by and checking out the roadmap. Please, if you want to continue the discussions, join the Zig community. Normally, I would say to people, join the Zig Showtime Discord server. But in this case, the discussion is probably interesting enough for everybody in any Zig community. So I hope you had fun. And thank you again for the donations. Thank you also for the new people that donated. Hector Jam donated $50 more. El Cobb 32. Thank you, everybody. And I'll see you soon with another Showtime episode. Bye-bye.
This is how we